Well, thank you, everyone. And we are thrilled to have our amazing guest, John O'Leary. Welcome, John.
Wayne, what an honor to be on, and thank you for the invite, and thank you for the work you do.
Well, hey, we're thrilled to have you. Thanks for taking your time. You know, the interesting thing about COVID is that everybody's kind of getting used to these being at home or doing the Zoom call or whatever it takes.
Well, you used to it, but as you and I were talking beforehand, I was ready to rock and roll at home, and at the last minute, the signal kept going and coming and coming and going. And so I finally just hopped in my car, raced to the office, and I'm coming in hot, but I'm excited to be with you tonight.
Well, that's great. So I'll tell you what, we're going to just jump right into this because, you know, we've been kind of telling people a little bit about it, and I know you've told us a million times, but we love you to, take 4 or 5 minutes and kind of share your story of, why, why would I reach out to John O'Leary, right? What happened to John O'Leary that makes John O'Leary what an amazing person he is? So go for it.
Being born to the right set of parents is part of what makes me who I am. But if you had asked me that question up until the age of 27, I would have had no idea how to even begin answering. Because until that point in my life, Wayne, I had no ability to fully embrace my scars. And for those of you who do not know my story, you can look on the screen now. These are my hands. I had my fingers amputated due to a house fire. So the story is this. At age 9, I witnessed boys in my neighborhood playing with fire and gasoline.
Okay.
And I figured, man, if these big old 6th graders can do it and get away with it, so can I. So on a Saturday morning in 1987, a 9-year-old boy walked into his garage. Mom and Dad were gone, bent over a can of gasoline, tried to pour a little bit of gasoline, monkey see, monkey do, on top of a piece of paper that was on fire. And before the liquid even came out, Wayne, the fumes, the invisible fumes came out of the can, created this massive explosion, launched me 20 feet against the far side of the garage, changed my world, man. I found myself that day with burns on 100% of my body. 87% of the burns were 3rd degree. And supposedly, from what my mom and dad were told by the staff later on that day, absolutely, utterly no chance of surviving. So that's the starting point of this wild story that we were fortunate in some regards and privileged and blessed and challenged to go through over the next not only 5 months in hospital and years of surgery, but lifetime that's followed.
Well, share a little bit about the impact on your family through that whole, because I know you have quite a few siblings and kind of talk a little bit about that, because one of the things we talk about Invisible Disabilities is it doesn't just impact the person that's going through it, right? It really impacts the whole entire family.
Really, really glad you brought that up, because I think most folks who don't have a disability, an invisible disability, or a challenge, so to speak, don't recognize how profound the effect is, not only on the life of those who are impacted directly, but on everybody who loves them, on everybody who's part of that family network. And for me, I did not realize that until age 27. Again, my mom and dad wrote a little book. They printed 100 copies. And they wrote it just to give to their church and community to say, thank you. Thank you for being part of our miracle almost 2.5 decades earlier. Thank you. And I read that book. And for the very first time in my life, I realized this terrible thing I went through wasn't the end of the story. I'd always viewed it as being the end of what I thought I might be someday. But I began to see, what if it's the start of it? What if it might be a new chapter of the best story yet to come? And so that changed the way I felt about my hands and my scars and my disabilities, my challenges. But even more than that, I had always thought the fire happened to me. Poor me. It's all me, man. I was the one that got burned. Poor me. And then I read this book and I could not imagine, and I'll get really emotional if you ask me additional questions on it. I could not imagine what my mom and dad went through. What is it like to care for someone more than you even love yourself, and to day after day after day have no idea if that child will be there for you when you come back the following day? To love this child even after he comes home from the hospital, but to wonder, will he ever make friends? Will he ever return to school? Will he ever go on a date? Will he ever get married? Will he ever find love? Will he ever love himself? That struggle that my mom and dad certainly went through, but my siblings, I'm one of 6. Man, I just thought it was always me who got burned. I never thought about what it's like for those 5 to lose their home. What is it like for those 5 to go 5 months without their mom and dad in their life? What's that pain like? What's it like even afterwards when all the attention in the world is on John O'Leary? and none of it is on them. So I you know, a lot of people say, John, you're a brave guy, a hero, man. You're really, it's an amazing story you've lived. And although I'm grateful for some of that, the reality is I think the real heroes in the story are my parents. The real heroes in the story are my siblings. It is the medical community. It is the support we receive from around St. Louis and around the world, and the prayers that we receive to encourage this family with massive challenges to keep the faith, to keep the hope, and to keep moving forward.
You know, you tell a little story about, you're in the hospital, you're just there, and then you hear your dad coming down the hall, right? Tell us that little story.
Well, man, I mean, and any little boy or little girl listening or watching right now can connect with this. But since I had seen the little boys in my neighborhood playing with fire and gasoline, I did this too, which means I caused the explosion, which means not only did I cause the harm to myself, but I caused my mom and dad's entire house to burn down. Like, that's on me. And I knew that even as a child. And so as the staff was moving around me feverishly, I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, my dad, when he finds out, is going to kill me. He is going to absolutely lose it on his boy when he finds out, and I deserve it. I deserve it. And then I hear my dad's voice maybe 30 minutes after I come into the emergency room down the hall. He's a veteran, and he's a great dude, and he's got Parkinson's disease today, so he's got his own challenges. But back then, he was a brick, and he was my hero, and I looked up to him, but I also feared him. And I hear him walking down the hall, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the old man's going to kill me. Here he comes to finish me off. And he pulls back the curtain, and my dad walks in, and shoulders are pulled back, marches over to me, points down, and says, John, look at me when I'm talking to you. So I look up, and then he goes, I have never been so proud of anybody in my entire life. And my little buddy, you look at me when I'm talking to you. Today, this morning, I am proud to be your dad. And then Wayne, you know, then he drops the mic with these words. He goes, I love you. I love you. And then he said, I love you. And as a little boy, I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, nobody told my dad what happened, right? I mean, maybe I can get away with this. Maybe he thinks it's like a bike accident or something. But what we who have had a little bit more wear in our tires, for those of us who have been through life a little bit longer, for those of us who have loved an animal, loved a spouse, loved a roommate, loved a child, loved a family member, loved life, you recognize at some point the power of grace, and the power of love, and the power of forgiveness, and the power of just being present with the one in front of you. And my dad came in that day, and man, it takes a whole lot of things to move through adversity in life, but it certainly takes others. I don't think any one of us on this call are big enough, bold enough, tough enough to get through life all by ourselves. And my dad being with me in the foxhole that day, it was a turning point in my recovery.
You know, John, I'll tell you, that's amazing. And I want to say to, you know, the people, there's a lot of people with invisible disabilities where their families have left them in the middle of tragedy, right? I mean, the fact that your family stayed together at all is an amazing thing. I mean, you hear about this a lot where, you know, something happens to a child that destroys the family, you know. So we want to say, you know, at Invisible Disabilities, one of the big issues that we love to do is help people believe people. Because when you believe their story, what they're going through, that shows that you care, and it gives them hope, right? Because that's really, that hope is to say, you know, what you've gone through is real. I mean, I hear it a lot where people say, well, all they ever want to do is talk about, you know, their problems. And I'm like, it's because we're not listening to them. If we would listen to them and validate, you know, the stuff you went through, man, there's no denying it's real. And you think about your siblings, you know, I mean, they were all around you as this is happening. I mean, they were home, they were doing heroic things, you know, and it's just amazing. Yeah, I don't even know how to respond, John.
Well, and I don't either, but I will say what I've always known, Wayne, and you and I have talked about this, maybe recorded, but certainly just over coffee and as friends. What I know to be true is I get a lot of, I would say, undeserved praise for what I've been through physically. When I walk through an airport and people are giving me a hand with my bag, when I check into a hotel in the old days, when I write a book and people are like, man, you're tough, courageously, physically, because I wear it on my sleeves, I can't hide from this. It's not invisible. It's very, very, very visible. It's in your face, man. You can't turn away from it. I think the far tougher thing to get through are the invisible scars. It's
Yeah.
the disabilities that people aren't acknowledging, the ones that people don't even see, the ones that people don't identify as being real, in particular when it's someone that is closest to you and they don't even fully get what you're going through.
Right.
So part of this conversation tonight, it's hard for me to have because some of the people who are tuning in are dealing with storms that I can't fathom. So they have my respect and my admiration and my prayers that they can weather this thing and live into the truth in my mind that their best days still remain in front of them.
Well, exactly right. And we're going through this really difficult time. And so how has your family been impacted by this? I mean, here's something in history that's the whole world is going through it. How's it impacted your family?
Well, directly, like everybody else's. So on the most superficial level, we have lost a lot of revenue. We've lost a lot of household income. We've dealt with some challenges financially, and that's just part of it. And we could go through a whole lot of other challenges. Well, for me, the greatest challenge is I can't hug my dad. My dad has had Parkinson's disease for more than 3 decades, and he's already got a weakened immune system and weakened lungs, and I can't hug him. It's just too much risk. So I have to keep my distance from one of the great heroes in my life, and that breaks my heart even to say those words, but it is true. And then my mother has some invisible disabilities herself, and she's also the caretaker of a gentleman with Parkinson's disease. And she's another one of the heroes in the room who is loving someone forward with some invisible disabilities while bearing some herself. And so not to be able to hug my mom is hard. We lost my grandmother 3 weeks ago on Friday. And to be at a graveside and not to be able to hug loved ones, and to only be able to gather 9 deep, can't have more than 10 people. It just is hard. I mean, there's a lot of challenges, and yet my glass is overfilled. It's not half full. It's overfilling all the time. I see this also as a chance for redemption and a chance at an opportunity to pivot into what really matters, to rediscover family and nature and beauty. And maybe for some of us to slow down. I run so fast. For 81 consecutive days, I've slept next to my wife, and I've tucked my kids in, and I've made them breakfast in the morning and lunch at noon and dinner in the evening. And so as a guy who usually spends about 100 days on the road, traveling, speaking, racing, to just be loving my family during the season, to me, it feels it's a mixed bag, but it also is a blessing.
Well, I think about that, John, too. You think about the people that they were social distancing before this, like my wife, for example, right? They were already doing this. They're doing it now. Now they got this added pressure of, how's it going to impact them from a health standpoint? What I want to make sure we do as a world, now that we're all experiencing the isolation, loneliness, distancing, I miss hugs too. I am like an incredible hugger. That's one thing. It just, oh my goodness, I miss them so bad, right? But we got to make sure we remember these people after COVID, and we all go back to our lives again, and we forget that so much, and they go back into that isolation by themselves. So that's a big part of it that we want to be about as an organization, and putting together these Invisible InCourage shows is a way to do that, to give back. So pick from your book on fire. You've got 7 choices, right? That to ignite a radically inspired life. What one of those 7 choices do you think could benefit people in this time frame right now as we're moving through it?
Man, all 7 work. I think the most important first one, though, is own your life. Own your life. And that's so broad. I get it. Like, it really is so broad. It grew out of that whole concept. Chapter 1 is around accountability and owning your life. After my dad left my room the day I was burned, my mom walked in, and she's just a remarkable lady. So she comes into this room. We're a middle-class family from the middle part of the United States. Have never really been through much more than a couple stitches in a knee from a bike accident, like nothing major at all. All 4 grandparents are alive. Everybody's healthy. Never been between work. Like, just had a charmed life up until that point. And now all of a sudden she pulls back the curtain, and that's her boy. And there's no clothes on his body, and there's no skin on his body. And she walks right in, man, doesn't lose her breath. She just moves. She comes right over to me. She takes my right hand. You can only fathom what that hand would have felt like and looked like, but she's unafraid. She just takes my hand in hers. She pats my bald head, and she says, I love you. I love you. So love is, by the way, chapter 7. I was deciding which one we should go with, but we went with 1. And then I looked up at my mom and I said, Mom, knock it off with the love. Am I going to die? Am I going to die? And I assumed, Wayne, she would say, no, baby, you're not going to die. I'm going to get you out of here. We're going to get you a milkshake on the way home, strawberry, your favorite. But instead, what my mother said was, baby, do you want to? Do you want to die? And I said, Mama, no, I don't want to die. Jeez. And she said, good. Then look at me. You take the hand of God, you walk the journey with him, and you fight like you have never, ever fought before. John, you own this. Look around. You are not by yourself. The staff is here. Your father's over there. Your mom's right in front of you. We're not going anywhere. But you got to fight. You got to really want this thing. And on that very first day, yes, my dad's love came in, and that made me feel better about tomorrow. Right. But had it not been for my mother's bold question, and then my decision to say, you know what, no, I don't want to die. I want to live. And I want to live abundantly. I want to live vibrantly. I don't care what's going to happen to me physically or the invisible scars that might follow. I want to live.
Right.
That was a turning point in my life. And I'm not sure the rest of it could have unfolded had that not happened.
You know, a lot of people with invisible disabilities, we always forget that, you know, they may be isolated alone, but these people are incredible fighters. I mean, live with chronic pain for 30, 40, 50 years. And nobody believes you, and the doctors can't figure it out. And these people just, I mean, to me, they're the true, you know, Mount Everest climbers, the true Ironmans. It's incredible. And they just keep going and fighting. You know, they're not giving up. They're trying every day. So that's awesome. So I'm going to ask you for a story kind of from your second book, In Awe. Then I want you to talk about In Awe. I'm going to reverse it a little bit, because your mom was loving in what we would call a very tough way. So talk to us about playing the piano. I mean, tell us about playing the piano, John. I mean, show me your hands again. Yeah, I can't play the piano, and I can't even imagine. So tell me that story.
It's a crazy story, and she's a crazy mom, but I think in order to take a big, bold step forward in life, you got to have a little bit of intensity around you, a little bit of righteous bravery looking forward. You got to see over the horizon what no one else even sees as possible. And so for all of us right now going through a storm, you're dealing with a challenge as a family or professionally or financially or physically for so many of us. Even if you can't see it, we got to be able to imagine, man, what is still possible over the horizon? What's possible in my life? And I learned that from my mom, and I wrote about it in the book In Awe. And here's one of the stories, but it's one of my favorites. I'm home from the hospital on a Saturday. That's after 5.5 months of recovery. We made it home. Big old party, man. People eventually leave, though. Now we're at the house by ourselves. Monday morning, the doorbell rings, and it's our piano teacher. And, you know, Wayne, I hated piano before I got burned. I hated piano when I had all 10 digits ready to rock and roll on those keys, man. I want to play baseball. I'm a typical Midwest boy. I just want to play outside all day long. And my mother walks into the kitchen. I'm seated in a wheelchair. I have wrappings on my entire body. My left arm is in an airplane splint. I'm on a morphine drip. And I look up and I say, what is she doing here, Mom? Right? What the heck? What is she doing here? My siblings are all in school. What is she doing here? And my mother doesn't say a word. She just walks right over to me. She unhooks the wheels on the brakes of my wheelchair, pushes me away from that table. Down a hallway she takes me, rolls me right in front of that piano. The piano teacher's there already. She puts her arms around me. She says, John, I've missed you. And then she says, we're going to do this together. And then she takes a rubber band out of her purse, okay? Ties a little pencil to it, like this kind of. And now a little boy named John O'Leary with one pencil strapped onto his missing hand, essentially on the right side, is playing the piano. It's the longest 30 minutes of my entire life. The lady eventually leaves. Misery finally ends. It's over. And then a week later, she came back. And then a week later, she came back. And then a week later, she comes back again. This goes on for 5 years. 5 years. But if you ever visit me, man, in St. Louis, you'll find a guy who's married and has 4 children. And I have a piano that we all play. Man, do I hit the wrong keys? All the time. But I found in life, sometimes perfection is the enemy of progress. And it keeps you from taking that next step forward. So I play the piano almost every day. When I speak live, or we do a lot of virtual events these days, even when I'm doing a virtual event, I'll play the piano. Because I think it gives people, not only does music heal for those of us in pain physically or emotionally, like music's a healing element, but when you see a dude with no fingers jam Coldplay, or Amazing Grace or Imagine Dragons or some Broadway hit. It's kind of like, oh man, like maybe I
Well,
can get through this storm too.
right. Well, but you think about that, John, though. So many people with disabilities that their life has thrown at them, they find things to get around. It's just amazing. You hear the stories of, you know, I mean, so many stories of dyslexia where they create something new. You know, how many times is some incredible new technology that helps people with disabilities created by somebody who has a disability? And they're like, I want to go outside and be in nature. And they create this wheelchair that's got like tank treads on it or whatever. And
Yes.
does this, amazing thing. Right. And so I think that those things, even though they are incredible challenges for us, right? I mean, it is, but we can see that part is part of how we are and who we are. Not that it defines us, but it creates the uniqueness in us, I think.
Man, that's so well said.
So tell me a little about In Awe. So you got this new book out. You know, your first book, On Fire, is just incredible. I mean, I got friends that are like, oh my goodness, John O'Leary, I love that book, right? and about, because they're in the business world and it's an incredible thing. But tell me about In Awe. It's something different about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the genesis is I was traveling around as a speaker and I'd be in front of all these big organizations. And it seemed to me like so many adults were going through life as if they were just enduring it. And it was boring. They're yawning as the sun rises and they were bored as the flight took off and they were missing the beauty of the day. And then I would leave these big conferences and walk into these school buildings. And these little ones would come in, whether they're in a wheelchair, they'd skip in and they'd have this goofy grin on their faces. And when I asked the question of the class, immediately every hand pops up and they're ready to share and they're ready to turn to their neighbor and connect. And they don't make excuses and they have these crazy, ambitious dreams for changing the world for the better. Almost none of them are egocentric at that point. They just want to like make the world peace. End hunger, end racism. What a gift that would be. End racism. That's their desire. And I wondered as I was watching this dichotomy between adults and kids, what is it that children have that we have lost sight of? How do we return to it? And if we did, what might that do to our lives? And so in exploring this and researching this and then seeing it with my own 4 kids, it went from like a white paper into a couple chapters, eventually into an entire book. And now the book is out there called In Awe.
Well, it's funny. There's a couple things that really stood out for me. One of them is I remember when I was a little kid, 4 years old, and I've spent 20 some years in the telecom industry. But back then, I'm 4 years old. We're out on a farm and there's a guy working on the phone lines at our house with his truck and everything. And I'm out there and I'm asking questions, right? Because you talk about that, the why. And I'm doing this. And my mom comes up and says, now, leave the poor guy alone. Stop asking him questions. You know what the guy says to me? He says to my mom and me, he says, if he doesn't ask any questions, how's he going to learn?
Amen.
And so that was such an impact for me. In fact, you talk about where people, they get excited before a meeting or they skip into the project. Well, the funny thing is, I never stopped doing that, right? So people think, what's wrong with Wayne? Calm him down.
Lives around the world, Wayne. Because you never stopped losing that curiosity, that wonder, that first time living that allows you to skip into the room and see a problem as an opportunity. That's what kids do. Any fool can point out flames and say that's bad. And if you don't believe me, watch the news tonight. They will point out the flames and they will tell you, look at this horrible thing. But a child sees it and wonders how we can redeem it, how we can make it better. And the only way ultimately you can get the answer is by asking the questions. Kids love ending sentences with questions. It's a pretty cool way to go into any conversation, just curious.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Well, you're right. I mean, getting that whole sense back of we need that, right? So this is a time to flatten everything. That's what's amazing is that everybody's been flattened. It doesn't matter stature, how much money you have, gender, nothing. COVID just said, okay, everybody, you're all the same. You're at home now. Now what do we do that's different? Right. And so I think we have this huge opportunity, as you said, to love more deeply, to pay attention to the little things and how important people are instead of just things, right? And if your neighbor needs help and you can help them, right? Why would you do that? So, that's what we love about Invisible Disabilities is really to help people that have been have become isolated and alone and abandoned and told they're even faking it and lying about it. And it's like, why would you want to go to the doctor all the time? Why would you lie about that? I mean, people don't lie about those things. You know, they don't lie about the pain that they can't deal with. There's just no need for them to do that.
The pain is bad enough, but then when you get shunned for experiencing heartache, whether it's a loss or something physically or something emotionally, wherever the heartache is, and then people are turning their back towards you and go in the opposite direction, it magnifies the pain of that. So when you lay out as a torchbearer, Wayne, this group that reminds all of us, myself included, that we're not alone, that there's an international group of people that get it because we're experiencing this thing together.
Right.
I think it breeds possibility and hope. And in a society where so much is negative and isolation, we think it's because of the pandemic. Cigna ran a national study right before the pandemic that said 56% of us feel as if we're isolated. That was right before the pandemic struck. And so we have a lot of work to do to go to our brothers and sisters in the community and remind them that they are not alone. They are worthy. They are beautiful, and their best days still are in front of them.
Yeah, they have value no matter what they're going through. And that's the big thing I want to say to people is, let's not look at people based upon productivity or all these things. Let's look at them because of humanity. They have an incredible value, and they have things to give back. You know, go spend 30 minutes with somebody who's been chronic pain for 30 years, and your life will be transformed. You'll go like, oh my goodness, you know, how you manage your life at all is unbelievable. So we always like to ask this question here near the end of our talk, John, because we call it Invisible InCourage. Now, if you notice, encourage is spelled with an I. And the reason why is because when you're going through a difficult time, you need courage. You don't need courage in the middle when everything's going great. That's not called courage. And so what we love to ask is, and this is a question, and I didn't ask you ahead of time either, is on your darkest days and those times where you know that it's really difficult, and of course a lot of us are experiencing that right now, what gives you courage to make it through one day? Not to get, oh, I'm going to get to the other end of this or it'll be all good one day. Right. What does it give you to get through today?
So part of it is the wall behind me. I'll give you like, my answer is going to have a lot of commas in it, so just hang with me for a minute.
That's fine.
But my family, whether it's the generations who've come before me, I'm in awe of my grandparents and their parents and what these previous generations have gone through to provide the foundation for the life that we have today. I know it's not perfect, far from it. But if you compare where we are to any other point in the history of the world, we're far and away in the best place we've ever been. That doesn't mean there's not horrible things that need work. It needs solutions, need experts stepping in and say, man, we can do better, because we can. But it's actually, in so many regards, never been better. And I credit previous generations for that, including my parents and their parents and previous parents. And then my little ones. It's the reason why I get out of bed. It's why I have a smile on my face all day long. It's why I work so hard, but it's also why I come home and play so hard as well. So work like a dog, play like a puppy. So those are a couple areas. Another thing that gets me out of bed is this mission statement that I have for life, and where I would encourage your listeners and followers to develop their own mission, because maybe not everybody has one, is to ask the question, who cares? Like, why do you care? Why do you care? Wayne, why do you care? And then to answer it with the statement, well, I care, and I choose to thrive because. I care, and I choose to thrive because. And my statement is, I care, and I choose to thrive because God demands it, my family deserves it, and the world is starved for it. Let's go. Let's go. No excuses, man. Let's go. Let's go. Let's have a good day today. So that gets me out of bed. That's a piece. And then the final thing is I look at pain as kind of through an eternal lens. And so I reckon in my faith view that God has big plans for me and all of us. There are no grandchildren in his pocketbook. Like, we're all his babies, man. He loves us all equally, regardless of what we're going through right now. And eventually, I believe we get to go home. So this too shall pass. And so when I'm dealing with something, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever it may, financially, relationally, whatever it might be, I also recognize this too shall pass, and try to see through an eternal lens, because then this day is not as difficult as I'd previously been making it.
Sure. Well, John, this is such a privilege and honor to have you to be part of our show, the Invisible InCourage Show. And, we're very excited. This will be posted up afterwards. We're thrilled. I'm always moved, and I can't wait to finish the book in awe, and I love being curious and asking questions. And let's get back that excitement of children, man. That is just a fantastic thing. We definitely need that in today's world. So thank you so much for being here.
Wayne, you do such great work, and you do it with such a humble, great heart. And so if it was only the work, I would be impressed, but not moved. When I see the way you do it and what you have going on in your own personal life and how you keep reaching out to others, it's impossible not to be convicted by the work that you're doing and the lives that you're touching. So thank you. And for everybody else listening, thank you for being part of this community. It is a beautiful community, one that reminds us that we are worthy, you are loved, you are enough.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Wayne.